Joining us today on Voices of Resilience is Jillian King, a candidate for District 4 on the Mecklenburg Schools Board. Jillian is a former CMS public school teacher who, after years in the classroom and raising a family, decided to step into leadership to help shape educational policy from the district level. She holds a bachelor's degree from North Carolina State University and a graduate degree from Xavier University. Jillian's campaign centers on honesty, transparency, and ensuring community voices are heard. She is an advocate for accessible information, including multilingual communication, strong community engagement, and ensuring that decisions made at the board better reflect the needs of students, parents, and teachers. Welcome to Voices of Resilience, Jillian.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Okay, so before we get started, tell my followers an unknown fact. When they see you, they know all these things about you, but what's one thing that they won't know?
I think one thing people don't really know about me outside of friends and family is that I love ballroom dance.
Really?
I found a passion for it in college and I started doing beginner competitions, and I'd love to get back to competing at some point. But right now It's just, no, there's no time, but I love ballroom dance.
No, I would never. But you just never know. I can't even see myself ballroom dancing, but I'm sure that is a very competitive sport.
I don't know about competitive. I don't want it to be.
Oh, okay.
I love it for just the joy of doing it. And I think it's one of those things, it's a partner dance. So you always are connecting with other people. So when I go to these dance lessons, I go to group lessons and I get to just, you rotate through your partners and you dance with everyone. And it's just so nice to like have this points of connection and get to learn something together with people that, you care about.
That is something to know. Okay, so you are running for board of CMS. Let's start from the beginning because that's huge, especially during these times. I want to know where you come from and why you chose to run for board.
Yeah. What's funny? Growing up, I actually did not really ever see myself as a teacher or working with children. And in high school, I was trying to figure out, what did I want to do from there? And I had a teacher who, I think that's every teacher's story, right? Is I had one who just saw potential in me that I never saw in myself and brought it out and just, created me as a person who just cares about other people and wants to do that as well. And so I became a teacher, and I think that's sort of where it kind of started, this road to the Board of Education. And then I left teaching when I had my daughter to be at home with her and focus on that early child development. And so I was teaching middle and high school, and then I was focusing on the early child development the last couple years. And when it came time for me to start sort of out of that mom period of like finding myself again and doing something that I care about and I can be passionate about, I knew I wanted to get back in education, but not necessarily in the classroom.
Okay.
And like you said, with everything happening right now, the turmoil in politics, creating a safe space here in our community, in your municipal elections and locally, is the number one most important thing you can do to sort of combat anything you see as negative from the political climate. And so that's where I wanted to offer my passion, my expertise, and hopefully help this community.
You're a brave soul because, I never wanted to teach. I never wanted to be a teacher. And it kind of was just thrown on me. I was around, I didn't realize it, that I was around educators my entire life. They had the most influence on my life. But my pastor, growing up, she was a teacher, she was a principal, and I just didn't think it would have the impact that it did. But so I can understand where you're coming from. What are the issues in District 4 that you are passionate about or that you're seeing need to be addressed by being a board member?
So we see a lot of diversity in District 4, and because of the turmoil happening politically right now, a lot of families don't feel safe. They don't feel safe sending their kids.
Yes.
And we see a lot of inequities happening in District 4 because we've got, especially further east you go, we've got a lot of low-income communities. We've got a lot of immigrant communities. And we have an issue where the access to being engaged locally and with the school board and your child's schools is difficult because, a lot of families are making ends meet and living in fear right now.
Right. Very much so.
Yes. And so definitely like addressing the communication needs and making sure that there's increased access to being engaged and to understanding what's going on. And then also addressing the safety concerns and making sure that not only are we keeping our students safe, but making sure that because of the increased communication, families know what we're doing to keep those kids safe and that the perception of that safety is matching up with the safety that we are ensuring for our students.
I like that because we are in a time where everything that we know there's so much uncertainty. But as a board member, are you thinking about equity as well and how that looks in your district?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we see the inequities even just within my own District 4. We've got areas of District 4 that are affluent and, are well off. And then we've got, like I said, the further east you go, really, we see a lot of more low-income families, and some of which don't have access to technology as much as others, or maybe don't have, as much access to English being their first language. And so that communication barrier. And so making sure that we are looking at, District 4 has, I think, 34 schools, 33 or 34. Which of those are we seeing the most need in, and what are those needs? And making sure that resources are going to the schools that need the most rather than spread, across every school getting the same. That's, equality is not equity. And so making sure that equity happens by
the need,
giving, based on need.
So as a former teacher, what are some of the biggest gaps or challenges you saw in the classroom experience that you believe the school board can address?
Oh, gosh. Especially when you teach high school and you are a trusted teacher that the students come to, I think you see a lot. And a lot of it's individual, but a lot of it is sort of systemic. Mm-hmm. And so mental health was definitely a big one. I had students approach me in one of my first teaching jobs about being a staff sponsor for a mental health club. I don't have those qualifications as much as I love that, but it did show that these students want that and that they need teachers they feel safe sharing those things with and having a safe space with. Right. In addition, I saw students I had one student who said, well, I'm a bad kid. You don't know that yet because you're new here. And I said, well, you've never done anything in my class to show me that. Right now, you're here helping me prepare an activity for the rest of the class. What are you talking about?
Right.
I'll make my own judgments, thank you. And it's that sort of cultural issue within schools that, certain students are being sort of left behind and being told they're the bad kid and are always in trouble when, maybe they do have some barriers to success and it causes them to act out or whatever. But like what I noticed is students that I treated with non-judgment and, gave that extra listening ear to were oftentimes the ones who were trouble kids, bad kids.
Right.
And they never gave me a problem. And they were nothing but sweet and wonderful. And they wanted to do good things and help others. And they just weren't being given that same chance. And so I think the board can help look at, what are we the disciplinary problems that we're seeing? What are we looking at and how are we addressing those in a way that makes sure we're not demonizing any students, even if they're doing aggressive things or doing things that are against policy? How are we following up with those kids and disciplining in a way that is conscious discipline and talking to them about a better path forward and following up with them about that path, making sure that even if they did something wrong, everyone makes mistakes. And how are we making sure that we are helping all students, even the ones that frustrate us and, they need our love most?
Yes, because there's a lot of them. But,
yes, there are.
And what I found too is that a lot of students, when I was teaching, or even, as an administrator, they would act out because they would get more attention doing things that they knew were wrong versus something they would do it because we, generally, like if you're doing what you're supposed to do, then you're doing, I don't have to worry about you. But if you're acting out, I give you more attention. But like I would tell my students, you're getting the wrong type of attention. So I started focusing on students who I knew had behavioral issues, but I would give them the right attention. So I was like almost retraining them to not feed into what society says, this is what you need to do. And it's hard for teachers to take those hours, you know what I'm saying, and retrain a child. But I'm telling you, it works. Mm-hmm. It really works because they come to school wanting to know the difference, so that's good. How would you work to ensure that information about policies, school performance, resources is accessible and understandable to all families, including those who face language or technology barriers? As we mentioned earlier, we're dealing with a lot of things that are just downright unfair. Okay, it really is. And so when we talk about putting information into another language, like Spanish, do you foresee us getting any pushback?
I actually don't think so. I know CMS already provides most resources can be provided in most languages of our families. Can be is a little different than making sure that they all are,
right.
And that families are able to know where to go to get those things. And then also, I think as far as communicating and making sure it's out there, most everyone, regardless of your socioeconomic status, does certain things within their own community. Mm-hmm. And so looking at, can we have the funding to just have sort of newsletters or information that goes out, non-technology? We could partner with the local grocery stores,
right.
And where they have their little racks of magazines and newspapers that are free. Why is there not a CMS one that's just a little newsletter that also goes out, in English and Spanish and
right.
whatever other languages we identify in the community? Things like that, just looking at how are we reaching people who can't come to us? How are we coming to them? And so I think there's probably a lot of answers to that. And a lot of that might even come from the community itself saying, how do you receive your information? Or how would you like to receive your information from us?
Right.
And making sure that we're doing that for the families that need it.
And two, we have a right to receive this information, regardless to the climate. I like that because then there's this level of trust. And so what I've observed about your platform is transparency. And so I wanted to ask you this next question about transparency and communication is central to your platform. What systems or practices would you put in place to ensure that CMS is more open and responsive to parents, students, and staff?
So a lot of that's kind of what I was saying is making sure that we are putting it out there in ways that are accessible, but also what is the follow-up when we have time for public comments at school board meetings? I hear so many concerns brought forward, and I know an email is sent to those that signed up to do so, which also has accessibility issues to be able to be there, not speak on anyone else's behalf,
right.
and sign up beforehand. There's accessibility issues to even coming to comment. But then afterwards, you get sent this email to provide any additional information, and I don't know what the follow-up is from there, but I'd love to know.
Right.
And we should all know what the follow-up is from there, because it seems like people are coming and talking to a brick wall right now when they come and leave comments at school board meetings. I've been, at these meetings and watching them and just thinking, why have this time? What is the point? What are you doing with this information when it's brought to you? And so that's kind of what I want to address is looking at what are these processes for addressing concerns, individual concerns even. I'm sorry, even. I think that it's important that everyone is feeling heard and that these concerns are being addressed because they're real concerns about the communities and the schools, and there are families that we're serving.
Right.
So I think those all need to be addressed, and that the community feels like they have this input, which would increase their buy-in and engagement, which just helps us all.
It creates a culture of trust and a community sense. And so when I look at the overall picture of some of the barriers that we're facing as a district, Highly qualified teachers become one of them, and retaining those teachers is another. So when you're asked questions about, teacher pay, highly qualified teachers in your school district or any school district, because you'll be voting to support all districts if you are chosen to be on the Board of Education for CMS, how do you answer that question?
I think that while I was teaching, the amount of times I felt undervalued, and not by students with poor behavior or anything. I mean, just even by the system and other adults. And I felt like I had to defend the fact that I'm a master's level professional in education. I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
And maybe the outward way that I'm doing things doesn't always come across misprofessional, and it shouldn't. I'm working with high schoolers.
Right.
I'm middle schoolers.
Right.
I connect to them in ways that work for them and work for me and are authentic to me. And I felt like I was always sort of having to defend this, and that I was under fire in some way or being told, no, you can't do it that way. And so when it comes to retaining teachers, I think offering that autonomy and trust, a culture of trust that says, you are qualified. I know that because I hired you, because you are, and I trust you to do the job you know best.
Right.
I think that's huge. I didn't get into teaching for the pay. No one does.
No one does.
Because going in that it's not great.
It isn't.
And while I think teachers should be paid more, I don't think that, paying teachers more is the end-all be-all answer to retaining teachers.
No, it's not. It really isn't. Because what will happen is that you'll start having people who want to get paid do a job that they weren't called to do.
Exactly.
There's a clear distinction between a person who is doing it because they love what they're doing and someone who just needs a job. And so I'm definitely a supporter of those who have been called to teach. I know that when I was teaching, I wasn't making a whole bunch of money and I didn't really care. It was just like what you said. Mm-hmm. It's the respect. It's an honorable profession. And it was so interesting because I didn't really think about how honorable it was when I was teaching until I went to Africa. And someone asked me, I was there taking supplies and school supplies. We went to Ghana. And they asked me what I did for a living, and I told them. And they said, oh, professor. It was like, no, I'm not on the college level. I teach middle school. It's no big deal. But there it was. It was almost like what it was when I was younger. Like I used to look up to my teacher like she was a superstar. She was the Beyonce of middle school or even high school. So I think if we bring that back, and make teachers superstars.
And that comes with trusting teachers.
Yes.
And it comes with our school board also being in the community and saying how wonderful our schools are and our teachers are.
Yes.
Because, we oftentimes will say so many negative things about what's not going right. And there's things that do need to go better,
Yes.
But there's also amazing things happening in the classroom every single day. And our teachers are pouring every part of themselves into that. And this increased engagement with the community is so crucial to them understanding what's going on in the classroom and how important it is for the whole of society, even if you don't have kids in the system.
That leads me into my next question, because Charlotte is growing. It's busting out of the seams. But what I don't particularly like about how this school is set up is that the zip codes start to matter. And if a certain population of people decide to move out of a school, it's almost like dinged, not the school to go to. It goes from, in some instances, gone from being a great school to a not so great school. I don't necessarily associate Title I schools with poor performance. Some Title I schools have done very well. But what I am saying is that how can we get away from, I guess, classified as a zip code county based upon the quality of education?
Yeah, I know one of the things that's happening right now is so the school boards moved to something called student outcome focused governance, which is all based on essentially a book by A.J. Crabbill, who talks about the most effective way to be a school board and how it works to increase student outcomes. And we've seen actually moving to that framework a huge amount of growth, especially in a lot of those sort of lower performing schools. And I don't know how, they're doing their best on social media and at school board meetings to tell the public that this is happening. But I don't know how much that's actually going to change public perception of which schools are in the public's mind, the good schools or the not good schools.
Right.
And what we really need in public education is such a high quality across the board education that, it doesn't matter which school you go to whichever one's nearest you, your little community school, everyone, who's lives around there, knows the families that are going there, and everyone's happy with the school they're at because they're all so good.
That's right.
And right now we're not seeing that. So I think there is a little bit of perception issue of just saying all our schools are wonderful. All our teachers are doing great things. All our lower performing schools are seeing huge growth because we're starting to be more equitable and we're starting to meet the needs that are in individual schools.
That's right.
And so that's just really what we need to do is meet those individual needs and then let people know that we're doing that and that the school you're going to be assigned to is a great school and we're going to make it greater every single day, every single year. It's going to be increased growth all the time. That's the goal.
That is the goal. We have changed so much as a society, post-COVID, technology. It's every day. Something is changing. Our students have gone from reading to clicking and scrolling. They've been impacted mentally from all of this change. And I don't necessarily feel that it's been in the most positive way.
Right.
And I think that we've always gone with the slogan, oh, children are resilient. Or they're made out of rubber. They'll bounce back. My question is, mental health and safety are pressing issues in schools. What ideals do you have for supporting students' well-being, both emotionally and physically?
So many. That is why my number one pillar that I always bring up is safety. And that is emotional and physical safety. I'm all about studies. I'm all about the evidence. Show me the data. And so Harvard actually does a really a lot of extensive studies on happiness and what makes people happiest long-term. 80-year studies, these things. And so the number one indicator of happy, successful people is the quality of their relationships. And so it's that community. And like you said, post-COVID, especially, our youth now are seeing this sort of culture of distance, of isolation. They're, they're on their phones communicating. And so luckily statewide, they did implement, not during instructional time, a phone ban for instructional time. And while many of our students are probably very upset about that, we can point to the data and say the why. The why is that this increased reliance on their phones has shown that it makes children more depressed and anxious.
Yes.
And adults too.
It does. It really does. Making sure, and I'm not saying we should, get rid of technology in schools. I think there's definitely a place for it and it can do amazing things in our modern world. But making sure that our teachers, our students, everyone understands the why behind, here's why we're doing it this way and not the easiest, click and drag way. That's right.
And making sure that we're also having things in our schools that build community. So certain school traditions and within the classroom culture, making sure that there's not really, everyone's going to gravitate towards people who are like-minded to them as far as friend groups and things, making sure there's not really these cliques, right? That everyone has acceptance for others and works together well, even if you don't agree. And I think those are skills that really, really, really need to be built and addressed, especially right now. Like you said, we see adults having issues, disagreeing, and still being civil.
That's right. That's right.
So creating those cultures at the school level, and then also looking at what policies we have in place that are affecting that culture. And that comes from all levels, and that can be really difficult. But just looking at our disciplinary actions and processes and the follow-up from those and our school cultures, I think kind of addresses a lot of that problem.
That's awesome. Okay, so I have one last question for you.
Okay.
So you know that financial aid, the Pell Grant, is being cut. We have a lot of students who need that money. They need the Pell Grant. And if you were elected to be a representative of your district on the board, would you consider, if proposed, to expand on the early college? We know that early college prepares students for college, but not only do they prepare them for college, students also have the opportunity to take college courses there, which will help them not have to pay a lot of tuition at the end of the day. So most of the students that we send personally to the early college, and when they graduate, they can graduate with a associate's degree or have some courses towards college or credit hours towards college. Would that be something that you would entertain? I know that the previous board did not entertain it. No,
Really?
They did not expand it.
Wow. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that would be just a wonderful thing to have. And when we talk about these student outcomes and we talk about this college and career readiness, right? Well, if we believe that, and if that's one of our student outcome centered goals for the year is that outcome, then yeah, we need to be expanding upon that. We also, I know when I was in high school, we had college professors that came to the school and taught courses in the high school that were the college course that you could sign up to take without having to be bused somewhere else or having to enroll in a whole program for early college. And I don't know if that's something CMS has, where like the early college program has people that do that.
I'm sure they do. They just didn't. They just chose where they could have really expanded on top of what the program that they have now. They didn't do it, and I just feel like it's stifling. You know,
For sure.
It's stifling, and so there wasn't really any, to me, reason, and they couldn't give an explanation like that question that you send through the portal and it goes into a mailbox of no one returns. So, but that's just one of the things that I'm asking. What is your idea, you know, as far as even from K all the way through college? What's the idea? What's the goal? I mean, if you're going to vote no to it, I would like to know now.
Right. No, I would absolutely vote yes to expand that program. And of course, I mean, everything's nuanced, right? That looks at the budgeting. It looks at infrastructure. It looks at all those things. But I think, you know, the slogan that there is, if there's a will, there's a way,
I like that.
Is so true. And I was telling people recently, my mom always jokes around like, you know, if anyone ever tells me no, they F around and find out. Sorry, guys.
Listen, they will. I'm telling you, none of us would get anywhere if we just allow no.
But if anyone tells me, well, we can't do it because X, Y, Z, I'm like, well, let's address X, Y, Z then, you know, and we just systematically go through and say, what are our barriers?
That's right.
Break the barriers.
That's right.
So if there's something we want to do and we believe is going to help students and help our communities, we're going to get it done.
Good. This is good stuff. Good stuff. Listen.
I'm all for it.
That is wonderful.
I don't know what their why was for not doing it, if it's budgeting or whatever, but like, let's get around it.
Listen, know your why.
Yes.
Know your why. But no, that's the Jillian slogan. Know your why. But let me tell you this. I want you to tell my viewers, the thousands of them that will watch you over and over again, why they should vote for you for District 4.
You should vote for me for District 4 because I'm going to break any of those barriers. Someone tells us no for something we know is going to help our students in our community. Like I said, we don't take no for an answer. So vote for me to get that drive and that effectiveness and just to love your kids as if they were my own, because that's something I did as a teacher, and it makes all the difference to know that every kid, no matter where they come from, who they are, or what trouble they're causing their teachers, they are being loved and cared for in the best way possible. no matter what.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us on Voices of Resilience.
Thank you for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yay!